the following podcast contains movie spoilers and mature content, including graphic descriptions of violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Opening Kill, the podcast that dives deep into the chilling world of horror films. Every Thursday, we explore a different movie, from cult classics to modern masterpieces, uncovering behind-the-scenes secrets, analyzing themes, and sharing fun facts about your favorite horror films. Join us as we chat with filmmakers and fellow horror film fans to celebrate the fear in cinema. And now, the hosts of Opening Kill, Michael Doran and Brian O'Connor.
Well, hello, it is Brian O'Connor, but you're not Michael Duran.
No, not yet.
Not yet? Is that what you strive to be?
No, this is Shay Astor talking, though.
Hey, Shay, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I got steak in between my teeth, and I'm ready to go.
Researcher Shay Astor and special effects makeup artist extraordinaire joining us this week on the Opening Kill podcast, the pod about all things horror, where we take a horror film, a classic or a newer film, and break it down for you. And great to have you aboard again this week, Shay.
Oh, it's great to be here. So excited for this one.
Cabin in the Woods is a great movie, and we're going to be breaking this one down for you this week. A lot of very cool actors in this, a lot of cool special effects, a lot of cool things in this movie.
Yeah, not only is it just a love letter to horror cinema, which, of course we would enjoy, but it also doesn't feel like it was that old. It's so crazy looking at the dates of when this movie was made and when it came out. I'm like, oh, this was just a few years ago.
I know.
No,
Not really.
not quite.
Not really. So we are going to break this movie down for you here in just a few moments. I want to thank all of our new listeners who have joined us this week on the Opening Kill podcast. We had several new subscribers over the past week. So thank you to all of you who have done that, liked and subscribed. And, I saw an interesting movie this week, and it was my scare preview from back in February. It's a movie called Ash. And my two favorite genres are horror and sci-fi. So when you combine the two, I'm always intrigued. This was directed by Flying Lotus, who also had a very small part in it, makes an appearance in it. I loved the atmosphere and the performances in this. Very stylish, very bold. The one thing I will say about it is they use a sequence of flashbacks to kind of move the story along. I think flashbacks are fine, but when you have a hard time telling the difference between the flashback and what's really happening, you kind of lose it a little bit. And that's kind of what happened here for me. It was just one of those movies where it was hard to follow because of that. But it still impressed me. I know that, Flying Lotus actually learned how to do visual effects watching YouTube videos. And I will say they are pretty good in this movie. I am a sound designer. And so the whole sound design, the atmospheric feel of this as far as sound goes was fantastic. It stars Eiza Gonzalez and Aaron Paul from Breaking Bad. And I gave it actually 4 stars out of 5. Definitely a film that, we might bring on to Opening Kill. I know we're getting ready to wrap up our first season, but it might be something that could land in season 2 next year. So movie is Ash, came out earlier this year. It's on Shudder right now. If you have that, you can stream it for free. Well, I mean, you're paying for Shudder, but at least you don't have to pay more for it. So there it is.
Honestly, Shudder has some great movies out there right now, and they have some great ones coming up for the rest of the lineup of this year. I'm excited. I have not seen Ash yet, so it's on my list.
Yeah. I first got wind of it earlier in the year and thought this looks very interesting, and it was. I just think the flashbacks got in the way just a little bit, but I mean, it wasn't enough to really make me not like it. It was a good film. So
I do think it's crazy that you and I come from very different aspects of filmmaking, and we look for very different things when
Hmm.
we watch movies. But it's also really hard to turn off the analyzing brain.
Yeah,
Um, but at the same time, I think sound design is always a very important aspect of a
sure,
film.
sure.
If it's bad, I can't sit through it.
No, agreed, agreed.
I did get to see Final Destination Bloodlines in theaters. Unlike some
I
people, a
haven't
little
seen.
late to the game.
Yeah, a little bit late. What did you
It'll come
think?
out soon. I really loved it. See,
Okay.
okay, I love the Final Destination movies as a franchise. It's almost like a guilty pleasure of sorts because after we just talked about it, graphics are usually a big deal, but if they're cheesy enough, it makes it so much fun to watch. However, Bloodlines was a definite new player to the game. Definitely had a bigger budget. It was directed by a pair of Zach Lipovsky
Hmm.
and Adam B. Stein.
Okay.
Um, Came out in May, I think May 16th, 2025. Yeah. And it will be out at this point, June 17 to rent, but Max, it will be streaming on Max in early August. So that's
Okay.
when you'll be able to catch it for sure. I loved this movie. Seeing it in theaters was a whole different experience, as most movies are. But we were introduced to Stephanie Reyes, a young college student who is haunted by a recurring nightmare of a 1968 tower collapse involving her grandmother when she was young. At a fancy new opening of the place called Sky View, kind of looks like the Space Needle, in my opinion. Been
Okay.
there, love
Okay.
it. Um, but it's an accident that never happened. So after getting no help from her family asking questions, she finds herself talking to her estranged grandmother, Iris, who spews crazy conspiracy and paranoia. Iris claims that if she dies, then the rest of her family, including Stephanie, will die too, and very soon.
Hmm.
Stephanie uncovers the truth, and death has become to hunt her and her descendants, those that were saved through due to her grandmother's premonition. So it's kind of tying into the original storylines that we've seen before, but it takes a little bit of a different twist. We bring in legacy. We bring in definitely family trauma. A little bit of a, you know, theme that I think a lot of people could understand and
Sure.
relate to.
Yep.
The deaths were fantastic. I'm not going to give anything away because you have to go see the movie.
Right.
It's kind of the same with all the Final Destinations. If you give any of it away, it's going to give the whole movie away.
What a great
But
franchise, though. I mean, overall.
exactly. And of course, we get the last movie of Tony Todd,
Yeah.
sadly. And he has this wonderful speech. It's a simple line, actually, that he was told just by the directors, like, if you could talk to the entire fans and franchise itself, what would you say? And gosh, the words are just so I literally cried in the theater because of how sweet and memorable it will be. I don't want to give anything away though. So
Right.
you have to go see the movie, but we can maybe talk about it later. We haven't done any of the Final Destination
No,
movies
we
here.
actually have not yet. And that's something that I think Michael and we mentioned it. And I think we'll move with that next season. As I said, we only have, I think, 5 episodes left in this first season before we take our summer break and come back for spooky season. But I think Final Destination, that should be one of the franchises we highlight next season. So yeah,
I
yeah,
agree. Because, life is precious.
it
Enjoy
is.
every second.
So another thing that is coming out here very soon. Speaking of 2025 movies, a new Red Band trailer for the Toxic Avenger reboot just dropped, featuring Peter Dinklage as Toxie, alongside Kevin Bacon and Elijah Wood. It's directed by Macon Blair, and it's officially unrated, promises over-the-top splatter, and it will be hitting theaters August 29th. So I'm pretty excited about this, to be honest.
I mean, the cast alone,
I
very
know.
exciting.
It's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So, well, are you ready to just dive right into The Cabin in the Woods?
Oh, we have so much to talk about, Brian.
All right, just the facts. This was directed by Drew Goddard, written by Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard, released April 13th, 2012, although it did get released at a film festival in 2011. It was filmed between March 9th and May 29th of 2009 in Vancouver, British Columbia. $30 million is what they had to make it. $66 million is what it made. And its tagline, you think you know the story, but you really don't here. And if you've not seen this movie, you need to see this movie. It's about 5 college friends that are setting out for a weekend retreat at a remote cabin in the woods. As they settle in, strange occurrences begin to unfold until they unknowingly unleash a family of undead killers from the cabin's hidden cellar. What they don't know is that their every move is being monitored and manipulated by an underground organization conducting a global ritual to appease ancient gods. And one by one, the group is picked off in increasingly brutal fashion, but the real twist lies in why they're dying and who is actually pulling the strings. It is The Cabin in the Woods from 2011. Wow.
Do you remember these marketing posters?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They had these great slogans on them, which kind of reminds me of our idea of good advice to take from survival horror movies. Here's a few of them just to reference them. If you hear a strange sound outside, have sex.
Yes.
If an old man warns you not to go there, make fun of him.
Right.
If someone is chasing you, split up. Oh, I love them. It's so creative.
This is an all-star cast too. You've got Kristen Connolly, Chris Hemsworth, Anna Hutchison, Fran Kranz, who plays Marty in this, who's just so funny. Jesse Williams, Richard Jenkins, a veteran actor, along with Bradley Whitford. You probably remember him as Josh Lyman from The West Wing. And Sigourney Weaver makes a surprise appearance at the very end of this as well. So the cast was exquisite. The story was brilliant. And the filmmaking that took place just really top-notch, I think.
I do think it's crazy to look at the critic reviews on this were well above the rating of like the audience.
Yep.
Because I think they didn't expect nor exactly want a satire sort of horror movie at the time.
So the movie starts not how you would expect it if you look at the title, The Cabin in the Woods. It starts out in this very bland underground facility. We have a couple of technicians, Sitterson and Hadley, that are played by Richard Jenkins and Bradley Whitford, chatting about, mundane office life. And you're thinking, well, what movie I thought this was supposed to be a horror movie in the middle of the woods. And suddenly the title card slams across the screen, The Cabin in the Woods. So right away, okay, this isn't your typical horror film.
Next, we're introduced by our main new buddies of the movie. We got Dana, Jules, Kurt, Holden, and Marty. They're all meeting up and packing into the RV, heading on a weekend vacation together.
I love how Marty shows up. He's smoking a bong in his car as he rolls up to the apartment complex where the RV is waiting for them.
My favorite move, of course, is that he's spewing a bunch of wisdom, I would say, as he has his window rolled down and then locks his car just through the window.
Yep.
It's a great setup for he has so much knowledge, but also good old Marty being high right off the bat.
Oh my God. So funny. And all of these 5 college friends, they're just so relatable and so real.
I agree. You immediately like them because we learned that they're not just stereotypical college kids, that they all have something that they're going towards in a sense of a goal. And they all are very complicated characters. However, we learned that they get fit into very easy stereotypes and archetypes
Sure.
throughout horror movies.
They
But we're
do.
not quite there yet, aren't we?
Well, it's a stark contrast from last week's film, Friday the 13th, where the camp counselors, we really didn't care about that much, but these ones you really do because they're just likable and you root for them. So
Exactly.
yeah.
But as they roll away, we notice that someone is standing on top of the roof of the dorm building, announcing their departure. And we get a glimpse that somehow these two worlds of like the facility we saw with the mundane office workers
Right.
and these lovely group of college kids are somehow connected.
So the character of Kurt, who is played by Chris Hemsworth, his cousin has this cabin out in the middle of nowhere, and that is where they are going to spend what they think is going to be just a lovely weekend of, I'm sure, lots of sex, drinking, and just having a good time. So the RV is on its way, and the place they're going to doesn't even show up on their GPS. Right there, I'd be like, rethinking this whole weekend trip.
Exactly. Yeah. If something doesn't show up on GPS, that means there's something amiss for sure.
I would think. So this is a great scene. They have to stop for gas and directions, and they do. They pull off in this gas station, literally in the middle of nowhere, and they meet this character called Mordecai. The best way to describe him is just this grim, apocalyptic figure who warns them not to continue, and played by the actor Tim DeZarn. And yeah, he tells him, you don't want to go up there. You might have enough gas to get there, but don't go. So what do? They just basically laugh at him.
Yeah, well, it doesn't help that he was kind of an asshole, you know.
Oh, he definitely was.
Yeah, they spew a lot of hate back and forth. One of my
Yes.
favorite lines here is like, I hear the railroad's coming through here any minute. Street paved with actual street. Like just making full on fun of him. But
Right.
he was an asshole. He deserved it.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. They were pretty cruel to him. So they get back into the RV and get on their way, and they eventually make it to the cabin, which I don't think it's what they were expecting, because this is a pretty run-down building.
Oh, it looks exactly like the Evil Dead cabin.
It might have been the Evil Dead cabin, actually.
Well, fun fact, they filmed that in Tennessee, Evil Dead,
Yep.
and they filmed this up in Vancouver, Canada. Good
So
old Canada, with all the
probably-
tax breaks.
Probably not the same cabin then.
But definitely a reference. One of the big references, for
Right.
sure.
So they get into the cabin, and they get into their rooms, and yeah, it's not great. There's one room that actually has a one-way mirror, or that you can actually, the person can look into the other room and see what's going on in there. And I think it was Dana that took a painting to put over it, because she was watching as one of the guys was starting to undress, and she was immediately like, oh my God, I can't watch this. And so she puts this painting up to cover the mirror, and it's this horror themed painting that she's like, oh no, God no. So she puts a blanket over that. But it's kind of a creepy place.
Yeah, from there we zoom out and realize that the entire thing we've been watching as the audience, the security cameras are also catching all of this. And we cut back to the control room with Sitterson and Hadley, where they're also watching and even announce like, oh, there was a room change. And they're even talking about how they're already at this point manipulating the people that are in the cabin, whether it's through Jules has recently dyed her hair, so they're manipulating her through her hair dye, or it's through Marty's stash of weed, or it's through the vents. They can just pump in chemicals and make people feel different ways. We
Yeah.
already know this is happening at this point.
What's interesting, there's a very funny scene that happens because Mordecai actually calls the control room, because as it turns out, he is working for them. And so Bradley Whitford's character puts him on speakerphone so everybody can hear, because they all know that Mordecai is this rambling, crazy conspiracy theorist guy. And so they put him on speakerphone. They start laughing at him, and he realizes he's on speakerphone, and he's like, wait a minute, am I on speakerphone? And when he's doing this rambling, he's got a whole different voice. But when he stops and realizes he's on speakerphone, he just talks in a normal voice. And so Bradley Whitford's character puts him, tells him, oh, I'm so sorry, I don't know how that happened. Let me put you, just so you're on the handset and take you off speakerphone. Well, he doesn't. And the guy keeps rambling on in his doom and gloom voice when Sitterson, who is sitting next to Bradley Whitford's character, starts laughing because he can't control himself. And immediately Mordecai stops again and he goes, I'm still on speakerphone. And everybody is laughing. It was a very funny scene. But you wouldn't expect Mordecai, based on the earlier scene at the gas station, to be in on this, and he totally is.
Yeah, they even talk about like how his job is so important that he has to warn them all as part of the ritual that we don't know too much about quite yet.
Right.
We also get to meet Truman, the security guard that's going to be in the room here, and he's new to the job, it seems.
Yeah.
And they're explaining like, you know what you're supposed to be doing here. And he even says like, yeah, I've been prepped. And he's like, well, you understand being prepped isn't quite the same as being fully ready,
Right.
because it does get pretty crazy a little later on.
Oh my God, it really does. And Truman is played by Brian White in the film, and he's a great actor. But it is funny to watch him. He doesn't want to really, once he realizes what's happening here, he kind of backs away a little bit and doesn't want to get too involved. So I don't know how much he was really told ahead of time here.
I don't think that much, honestly. But he kind of becomes us as the audience of we don't really know what's going on, and he
No.
plays the moral high ground of sorts
Right.
through the rest of these few scenes.
Agreed. Yeah. So they're in the cabin, and later that night, the cellar door flies open unprompted, just opens by itself. And they do what every group of horror teens, early 20s people should never do. They decide, let's go down there because this seems like a good idea. And they do, and they find all these strange artifacts and all this stuff. And they also find a diary that was written by a girl named Patience Buckner. And they start to read from it, and some of them don't want to have it read out loud because they're kind of freaking out about this, and some of them are kind of laughing it off. So they do. They read out loud from this diary, and that triggers some things here.
Marty really is the voice of reason in this moment. You wouldn't think the stoner of the group would be the one to say, do not read the fucking Latin. But we do also get to see they're playing with a bunch of other trinkets that are in this basement. However, the diary is the one they all decide to focus on. That's important later.
Yeah. So they read this Latin, and there's a cutscene where we see this body rise from a grave out in the woods. So he was long dead before the film even starts. So, we're not going to count his resurrection or we're not going to count his death as a kill tally, because who knows when this actually happened, but he was already dead. But you see him rise from the grave like the zombies in Michael Jackson's Thriller video. He comes up and there he is, Matthew Buckner. So, yeah. And they don't see him, of course, because they're in the basement doing what they're doing.
And we cut to the control room, of course, is watching this.
Yes.
And beforehand, the entire, not only the control group people in the room, but the entire staff, it looks like, has now crowded into the space and is betting on who or what will get chosen. And we don't know what's getting chosen yet. However, when the lovely zombies rise from the grave, we get a little more exposition here. We get to see a full whiteboard full of zombies and werewolves and sugar plum fairies and different things listed on the board as
Hmm.
options that could have come out, and we don't know what's going to happen next, but we assume gonna kill these people out in the middle of the cabin in the woods.
I think it's one of the things I really like about this movie. They only give you enough information to get you into the current scene. They don't give anything away until they absolutely have to. And I like that. And because you're always wondering what's going to happen next, what is going on here? But everything does get explained in its own time. And I thought that the pacing that this happens is perfect.
There is no slow moment in this movie.
No,
We'll say that.
there's not.
Well, we do see as people start to filter out of the control room, um, we hear that Hadley and Sitterson are now kind of the last few minute remaining people there, and Hadley's kind of pounding a little bit because he's like, "Man, he had the conch in his hand," because Chris Hemsworth's character Kurt
Mhm.
was holding a conch at one of the points. And he was like, "Yeah, better luck next year." AKA, we learn that this happens every year that
Yeah,
they do this
right.
ceremony, this ritual. The two joke about calling Japan because multiple countries are doing this ritual in different areas. They say, should we call Japan and tell them to have the day off? Um, it's hysterical because, there's a stereotype there as well.
Yeah.
And we get a little vision of, on the smaller screens that, in Japan, there's like this terrifying girl that's like a spirit demon, kind of looks like someone from The Ring,
Hmm.
the girl from The Ring, Samara,
Right.
um, terrorizing these 9-year-old girls in a classroom. And then we cut to back to the cabin.
Right. So Jules and Kurt are a couple and they decide to sneak off into the woods. They want to have sex. And so she has some complaints. First of all, it's too dark out there and she doesn't want to do it out in the woods. And this is kind of a cool thing because the techs back at the facility all of a sudden turn a knob and you see these pheromone gases come out of the ground to really get her in the mood. And they also turn another switch to bring up some more moonlight. So now it's not as dark. And now she's more ready to have sex with Kurt. And so that's what starts happening next. But it's not very satisfying for either one of them as things now happen.
They definitely start to get it on. We get to see some boobies. Heyo.
Hey, I'm
Love
okay
boob-
with that.
Who isn't, honestly? They even cut back to the control room, and Truman, the new guy of the group, is kind of like, "Why do we need to see that? We don't need to." And the guys even state like, "We're not the only ones watching. We have customers to satisfy." And I think that's a nod to us.
And what's funny is you look at their faces, they're like drooling. The guys are like drooling, practically watching this sex about to happen.
So they're definitely about to get hot and heavy. They're laying on the nice, cool moss. And we get something very important here, a big bam stab to the hand
Oh,
out
look,
of the blue.
that looked painful.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And Jules is now crying in pain and screaming out of fear, as anyone would be,
And
I think.
pain.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And the both of them jump up. Kurt gets stabbed in the shoulder and hit by a fucking like a bear trap
Yep.
to the back of his back.
Yes.
Yep. And as we see the entire family of the Buckners, as we learn to call them, um, they all are crowding around, and Kurt's being held down by some of them. Jules
Mhm.
is being held down by another. A big cross-cut saw, like two-handed person saw, is
Yeah.
being brought up to her neck.
And that brings us to
Opening kill.
what I will say about this is it took a while to get here, but I didn't mind it because this film kept moving along the way here. And there were no slow parts in this movie leading up to this. They were all very entertaining. But 43 minutes and 15 seconds in, poor Jules is decapitated by this saw by the Buckner family. And her blood is then funneled into a sacrificial altar that's beneath the facility, which we still really don't know about yet.
Yeah, I do think it is kind of interesting. The people in the control room, they kind of say a prayer of sorts.
Yeah.
Where they say this we offer in humility and fear for the blessed peace of your eternal slumber. How
I
mysterious.
found that very mysterious and very interesting that they would pause because they were so gung-ho for all of these deaths to happen, but then they stop and pay respect, which was very odd, but it worked so well in this movie.
I agree. It does not mean that there was any slow points.
Right.
So,
Right.
not only on that end, but on the effects end, it's a butcher knife for me.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I give it a butcher knife as well. Here's the deal in this movie. This is one of those films where the kill count, I don't actually think has an exact number of kills because there are so many. And once we get into this a little bit further, the kills are going to really literally come fast and furious. And I know, Shay, you took a lot of time and you did what I did on From Dusk Till Dawn and actually went through this movie, spent hours pausing it and looking at all the different aspects of this film to try and come up with a kill count. There's just so many. I mean, there are some certain ones that are for sure that happen. And so we're going to go over all of the ones that we can tell you about, but there's just so many in this movie that I don't know. I mean, we do have a number that Shay and I actually agreed on, but there's just so much that happens and it happens very fast. So it's hard to track it.
It gets into the question of, do you count off-screen kills that you're not exactly sure what happened?
Mhm.
Do you count things where people are struggling and on the verge of death? Do you
Right.
count those? And then, of course, do you count certain things like maybe the entire world ending? You know.
There's a lot of numbers to try. And I mean, I'm looking at my kill count now going, I mean, I've got like the basic ones here, but I know you have more than what I came up with, and we'll combine these all together. So jumping ahead, Kurt actually survives that attack and he gets away from the Buckners, the which are basically they're zombies. And he gets back to the cabin and he tries to warn everybody else what's going on. He's beat up pretty badly, so they know something's going on and they ask what happened to Jules, and his response is she's not here anymore. And everybody's freaking out now. So it's panic mode.
Dana especially freaks out because Jules was her, for sure, best friend at this point. She goes to open the door of the cabin, and inside stands like this looming figure of one of the big zombies. We call them torture redneck zombie. What do they call them exactly? It's like zombie redneck torture family. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
Right.
And this entire family, we read in the diary that all of the family were really into torture, kind of gross, but specifically Patience, the one that wrote the diary, she had her arm kind of hacked off before she even died. And Marty and Kurt, who were outside at the moment where everything's starting to come together, Marty's like, yeah, I saw this girl with a hacked up arm. And Dana starts to connect. Oh, you mean like the girl from the diary we just read? Ah,
Right.
things are connecting. Anyway, so they decide we gotta board up the house. And Kurt kind of takes the lead on that.
Right.
He says, we have to go room by room. We stick together and we gotta we gotta take this as a team.
Yeah.
And the control room cuts back to them and they're going, oh fuck. But however, there's apparently a gas that will change their minds. And Kurt walks through this gas in the hallway
Right.
and he goes, wait, maybe we should split up. I want to know what that gas is, honestly,
No
personally.
kidding. No kidding.
So they all decide to hide in their own rooms, and the doors all shut behind them.
Right. Right. So we fast forward a little bit here, and Kurt decides he needs to try and get away and get help. And so they get outside. It's him, and he's got a motorcycle, and they're looking at this canyon that separates the cabin from like the road out. And Kurt decides that it would be a good idea to get on this motorcycle and jump this ravine. And so that's the new plan.
As one does.
Yeah. This does not go according to plan either. He gets on the bike and he gets, goes back away so we can get a running start, and he jumps and he hits this force field and tumbles into the ravine, which is far, far below. And you see the effects here are pretty cool. You see him, kind of hitting the force field as he goes down and down and down. And I have to say, there was a scene earlier in this film when they were still in their van, the RV, going to the camp. And there's this close up of a crow that's flying through the air. And it's graceful, it's beautiful. And then out of nowhere, it hits this same force field and dies. And right then, that something is up. And honestly, when I saw him jump off of this cliff in the motorcycle trying to get to the other side, I kind of telegraphed this. I kind of had a feeling that was what was going to happen. He was going to hit this same force field and then just tumble down. And that's exactly what happened. And that was the second kill of the movie, was Kurt, which is Chris Hemsworth.
Oh, so sad. He hasn't even been Thor yet.
Not yet. No, this was totally before Thor.
Yeah. I do think it was interesting. They are heading out on the RV panicked, and we see the control room realize that the tunnel hasn't been blown, which was something they had planned on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they do get it blown so that it is closed off to them, but something is amiss on their end now, which adds a little bit of suspicion there too. So something is going awfully awry in both worlds that we're seeing. And we don't know what.
Yeah, this actually, it feels like this is the first time that whoever this organization is that is conducting this thing, this ritual, this is the first time it's really kind of started to get off the rails, and they're starting to panic a little bit. And I mean, they've make mention to they've had other things that have happened, but now it seems like things are happening that they were not anticipating, and they're having to plug some holes and try and fix things and keep everything together. Yeah, you're right. That is what's going on here.
But the control room, when Kurt dies, they do pull another lever, and we get to see a little bit more of these like blood statues, these figures, and this room that has not been revealed to us fully.
Right.
But the two, Dana and Holden, they get back in the RV and they drive back towards the cabin, trying to figure out what to do next. And of course, Dana is freaking out, realizing that Marty, who has disappeared, we don't know what's happened to him yet.
Right.
Marty was saying stuff in his high state, as high people do. They start spewing conspiracies and theories. She's like, maybe Marty was right. Maybe that we're being controlled. And Holden's like, no, calm down. Like, I need you here with me.
I think we should point out too that Dana and Holden were with Kurt on that cliff before he took off. So they're already completely rattled by what they just saw, the death of their friend, and driving this RV back. They're just like, yeah, things have gotten out of control now in their lives.
It is interesting to see the difference between the out of control they're feeling versus the out of control that like the underground, the control room is feeling. They're both happening at the same time, which is why this movie is so great.
Oh yeah.
We're building tension already.
Right.
And the big battle scene hasn't even happened yet. But anyway, So they're driving in the
Yeah.
RV and everything's calming down for a minute. They're having like a heart to heart as these two were set up to like be lovers of sorts. They're, you know, but all of a sudden, bam, a big old knife that looks almost like a scythe comes through Holden's neck from behind.
Yeah.
And one of the Buckners has snuck onto the RV and stabbed him through the throat.
Oof,
Oh,
brutal.
it does. It definitely, this is our kill number 3.
Mm-hmm.
He does stab him a few more times, just for good measure.
Yeah.
Holden is getting stabbed through the neck and multiple times. He now drives the RV off the edge of this road and into the lake below.
Oh, man. And this is where I got a little crazy in my head because I'm claustrophobic. I'm not a strong swimmer. And this RV plunges to the bottom of this lake. It's a fucking deep lake. This is not just the shallow pond. This is down there a long ways.
Oh, this is like Crater Lake for us. That's
Mhm.
what it looks like. It's a deep lake.
Yeah, Crater Lake is fantastic. So Holden is dead, but Dana is still alive and well in this RV as it plunges to the bottom of this lake. And she is actually able to escape and swim to the surface, but it's a long swim up. And I'm even getting like I'm not breathing well watching this.
I don't think anyone is,
No,
honestly.
no.
But we do cut back to the control room is now celebrating, and Truman, the new guy, the security, is asking why are we celebrating? This girl isn't dead yet.
Mhm.
And the boys state like, well, the virgin's death is optional as long as she suffered and as long as she's last. And one of my favorite lines here, I gotta quote it. Hadley is sitting there going, wow, I'm almost rooting for this girl. She's got so much heart. Think of all the pain and the tequila is my
He just
lady.
breaks into that, and it is so
It's
funny.
almost like he's watching a movie being like, oh, I care for her. And then going like, oh, my favorite snack appeared.
Yes, that's exactly
much.
it. That is
As
exactly
workers, like everyone starts to crowd back into the room to celebrate because in theory, they think the job is done.
right. Yeah. So earlier, Marty was dragged into the woods by one of the Buckner zombie family members. And the facility logs his death thinking that he was dead. But that's not exactly what it was. Marty was just presumed dead, but he actually survived. And he's now found a hidden elevator access hatch under the cabin.
This is the beginning of such a great sequence,
And
honestly.
this is where it's hard to keep track because, as I mentioned earlier, things start to happen very, very fast.
So we see the two of them, Dana, who escaped, and Marty in the elevator. And they're brought down to the main level, which is this interesting level of 8 elevators. I call it the elevator lobby.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where a man with a gun is standing there ready for him and asking for the girl to step out so that they could, in theory, kill Marty because the virgin has to die last.
Yes.
Is what they've already stated. However, they bum rush the security guard, knock him to the ground, and we see that a zombie arm from one of the Buckners that Marty kind of like he decapitated and eviscerated the body. The body's still crawling though, so the zombie arm is technically the kill.
Sure.
Who gets the security guard.
And then there's a series of security guards that get just devastated because Dana and Marty actually trigger a full monster release. And so mayhem pretty much erupts in this facility as every creature is set loose. And there are dozens of different monsters. There are some really good ones here, but I mean, on our kill sheet, we've got like 11 security guards that are like in a row, just out by these different monsters that have now been unleashed on the facility. And
We
you
get a
may,
brief look.
you
We
know,
get a brief look
yeah,
at a few of the cubes that these monsters are held in,
right,
but this is where we get to see them shine and do
right,
their work. So it's
exactly.
things like a giant snake, a dragon bat, one of like the molesting trees, which is obviously a reference from Evil Dead as well.
Yep.
Flying goblins, a great looking werewolf.
Oh God, yeah,
Oh,
yeah. You've got the, I mean, you've got the unicorn impalement. You've got all kinds of things. You have a merman attack. You have just all of these kills that are happening by different things. The sugar plum fairy is one of the funniest creatures with the teeth and everything else. You've got clowns and, like you said, the giant snake and all of these creatures just turning this place upside down.
it is crazy. For the elevator chaos scene, they used over 200 gallons of fake blood
Good
to get the
God.
look that they wanted. And
200
every
gallons?
200 gallons.
Oh my
Isn't that
God.
crazy?
That is a lot.
They also had to kind of map this out, of course, because people are dying all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where they do that great blend of practical effects, because this movie, I have so much to say about the great practical effects and the use of visual effects to blend it all together. And that's what makes a great horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Is mostly they use the VFX here to just map out who would die in which order, using the green screen to make sure it all mapped out correctly, and then filming what they could in real life, and then putting everything else in post for the video, like the editing side. I think this was a great um, homage and love letter to horror movies, because so much happens and we get to see a little bit of everything, but also we're so overwhelmed as the audience that um not it's very hard to catch every single kill, which is why our kill counts do differ a little bit. And that's where mine comes into play. The greatest part, and I do think as a sound designer, you have why we both agree this is one of the greatest scenes, is the elevator ding scene,
Oh my God.
where everything
Yes.
goes quiet.
Yep.
Everything goes quiet. They
Yep.
have the soldiers outside ready to shoot on sight. We hear the elevator like whining noise, and then silence, and then ding, and the monsters just explode from each and every crevice.
So we go back to the control room and we have Truman and he is there and he's now being attacked by 4 scarecrows, which is fantastic. He's being stabbed and everything else. He has a grenade. And this is a great scene because he pulls the pin on the grenade, kills himself in the process, but also blows up the 4 scarecrow. And you see Bradley Whitford's character, Hadley, go flying across the room and hit a counter and hit the floor. So there's more kills right there. And I love scarecrows. And this was one of my favorite scenes, this control room scene where they get blown up like this. It was just great.
Oh man, this next part. Go ahead, Brian. You tell it.
All right. So the next kill is going to be Hadley. And earlier in this film, you know, there was a kill that happened and he was disappointed because he wanted to see a merman do this kill, and it wasn't the case. So he is laying there on the floor, probably with the wind knocked out of him because he went flying across the room from the grenade explosion. And this merman comes up to him and starts crawling towards him. And this is one of the funniest lines in the entire film. He looks at it and he's like, "Oh, come on." And those are his final words before the merman gets on him. And this merman has a gill in his back. And before too long, you see blood spurting out the back of the gill here. It was so funny. And that is the end of Hadley in this film. But a great kill. Just a great kill.
I do think the fact that it was all practical effects too even makes me love it more. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely.
This is one of the greatest uses of blood pumps, my favorite thing in the world.
Yes, we talked about that last week. Yeah.
We did, but this one went successfully. They have almost 5 minutes of footage of
Oh,
that,
God.
the blowhole of sorts of the gill blowing up different amounts of blood
Yeah.
to get the right look. And
Oh,
it's
boy.
crazy to watch. Oh my gosh. But funny enough, I am going to speak here about the lovely special effects makeup artists in this movie. So this was done by David Anderson, who is one of my favorites. He did some great work on some B movies that you wouldn't expect, but one of his first was The Serpent and the Rainbow,
Oh,
which
what
was
a great movie. I
yep, from
actually
the
watched that recently again.
oh my gosh, I love Wes Craven. He has a creative mind and does things very well. But that's how he met his wife, who was Heather Langenkamp, who played Nancy in Nightmare on Elm Street.
Your favorite franchise.
Oh my gosh, like a final girl.
Yeah.
Oh my god, what a dream pair there. So she actually joined the makeup. They call themselves AFX Studios, and they do a ton of great work of from simple to complex. And this was definitely complex.
Oh,
They
yeah.
got all of the practical effects here done in prosthetics in 6 weeks. They molded everything, and it was all from the minds of directors and people on set who had just the question of what scares us
Yeah.
asked to them, and they created it. So they did, and it was put into the movie.
Mm.
So yeah, so we have those two working on this set. And the merman was one of their favorites, honestly, to make and to watch, because it's such a great pivotal scene of watching one of the characters. We didn't hate him. We liked Hadley. He was
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Um, but we also watch him get his just desserts for torturing teenagers of sorts.
Let me tell you, the merman, that was my favorite creature in this entire thing. It looked incredible, and I loved how it acted and how it, attacked Hadley and just crawled and just the look of it. And then, of course, you have the blood coming out the back gill. It was by far my favorite character in this whole thing. What an amazing creation.
I do. I love that one too.
Yeah,
The unicorn also is up there.
that was pretty good too.
Yeah.
So
Who doesn't want a real unicorn?
I
Man, I want
know,
one.
right? So our next kill is going to be Sitterson, who is basically Hadley's partner in this. And he drops through a hatch into an underground tunnel. And as he drops down, he just happens to stumble on Dana, or she stumbles on him. And in a moment of panic, she basically stabs him in the stomach, not knowing what or who he was. And so everybody who was in the control room does not get away with everything that they have done here. They all meet their just desserts, so to speak. So, yeah. And then we get back into this tunnel with Dana and Marty. Dana and Marty then enter this temple chamber that we've kind of seen parts of throughout the film. And then we meet the director who is in charge of all of this, and it is the incredible, amazing Sigourney Weaver.
Man, a bunch of final girls involved in the movie. Who wouldn't want that?
I didn't know she was in this when I went to go see this in theaters, and it was such a delight to see her show up. So she explains to Dana and Marty that 5 archetypes must die to appease the ancient ones, and she goes through these. Kurt was the jock, Jules was the whore, Marty the fool, Holden, he is the scholar. And she gets to Dana, who is considered the virgin, and Dana looks at her and like, the virgin? And her response is, well, we have to work with what we have, or something like that. So
Yeah.
and she's like, oh my God. So she urges Dana to kill Marty because the virgin has to die last in all of this. And it leads to another conflict.
We do see Dana kind of struggle with this news, and she picks up the gun that the two, Marty and Dana, have picked up along the way. She picks up the gun and aims it at Marty,
Mm-hmm.
and goes, it's it's the whole world, Marty, versus us. And she almost does pull the trigger when a lovely looking werewolf appears behind her, and Marty doesn't stop it as she gets chomped on by the
Oof.
back of the neck.
Yeah.
And so then it sets off a struggle between Marty and the director. They both reach for the gun. Marty gets it and shoos away the werewolf because it's not silver bullets. It doesn't kill the werewolf, so that's gone. And then it's a hand-to-hand combat between Sigourney Weaver, aka the director, and Marty.
Mm-hmm.
We do, however, see Patience Buckner
Oh
reappear,
my
and
God. This is so unexpected and so brilliant. I love this.
She passes by Dana like she's nothing, which is hysterical to me too, and wanders towards the two of them fighting at the edge of this like platform above the Ancient Ones. And Marty realizes what's going on and gets the director on like closer to the top, and boom, Patience hits her right in the head with her axe, and there goes the director.
Yeah, so that ends the possibility of a completed ritual now. The director is out of the picture and all of that. Dana decides not to kill Marty, and they're sitting on the edge of this platform and they light up a joint, which is just fantastic. And they're talking about things. And so the ancients who live below the facility now are starting to awaken and come back because obviously the facility did not do their job. They did not kill everybody like they were supposed to. So now we get a few more deaths with the Ancient Ones rising from the depth of the earth.
Yeah, we see, sadly, Dana and Marty hold hands as the earth crumbles below and above them at the
Right.
same time.
Yep.
And a very, very large hand comes bursting out, destroying the facility. And we realize that they were right about the fact that the cabin was upstairs and the facility we see is downstairs,
Mm-hmm.
because the hand bursts through this temple room sort of thing, bursts through all the way up to the cabin, destroys it, and covers the camera in black.
Yeah.
And we think that's the start of the Ancient Ones coming back and,
Yeah.
in theory, destroying the world.
Right. So how many billions of kills are involved in that?
This is where it gets tricky because,
Yeah.
in theory, the movie was made in 2009, so the kill count would have been closer to like 6 million.
Billion.
6 billion.
Yeah.
Yes, it would have been closer to 6 billion.
Right.
But the movie came out in 2012, technically to U.S. audiences,
Sure.
to everybody.
Right.
So in 2012, it was closer to like 7.2 billion. So
Yeah.
a lot of billions of people just died. One of
Yeah.
our highest kill counts, I think.
Yeah. No, I think so too. If we counted the end of the world, which is what I've got on there, I've got this killed the world, killed by the Ancient Ones. Yeah, you would have been in the billions. We're not doing that, obviously, but you did actually come up with a number.
I did. Yes. So in total, I had 75 total kills.
Okay.
Whereas the average done by others has been 56.
Mhm.
But I think your number was actually closer to 59.
Yeah, I would have to look and see. I mean, I don't even have it. I have the kills listed, but there's some of these
By
kills.
groups.
Yeah,
More.
there's groups that are in here because I didn't feel like taking the time to go through each individual. Yeah, so
Don't you worry, I did it.
I'm glad. Well, that's why I didn't think that I needed to, because I knew you were going to have me covered on that. So
Yep, I had 75 total in this.
Okay.
If we're not counting the world, 76 if we're counting the world, I guess. But you'd add the billions onto that.
right. Good God. It's a bloodfest, to be sure. So total body count, as Shay mentioned, and then most brutal kill, in my opinion, would have been Hadley's merman death. I think it was very poetic, gooey, and grotesque. Funniest kill was the unicorn impalement. majestic horror at its finest. Final girl power ranking. Now, I'm going to include Marty in this because it was Dana and Marty. Give them 8 out of 10. Clever and strong, though their survival obviously comes with a price, the end of the world, and their deaths eventually. And slasher survival tip. Here you go. If you find yourself in this situation, if the cellar opens on its own, don't go down there. And seriously, don't fucking read the Latin, okay? Because bad things will happen. Jeez. So anyway.
We do not read the Latin in this household.
Star grade for me is a 5 out of 5.
Oh, agreed. 100%.
Yeah.
There was such incredible work here done, mostly because it was an homage and a reference in every little speckle.
Yep.
But at the same time, it was almost a critique of the genre.
Yeah.
We could infer that the ancient ones below were us, the audience, always craving this horror movie. Every year we have to have one, at least one.
Yeah.
And if it changes the status quo, if it doesn't follow a formula, we are no longer satisfied.
Sure.
But this was kind of the directors telling us, like, it's okay to break away from that and create something new.
Right.
And it's funny that the critics all rated this pretty high, but then the audience didn't like that it was somewhat of a satire, that it was asking us to think about that, and got like a 74% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. For me personally, it's of course a 5 out of 5. It'd be a 10 out of 10, a million out of a million.
Yeah.
7.2 billion out of 7.2 billion.
I think that audience attitudes have probably shifted over time, as they do for a lot of movies, that when they first come out, they don't always, resonate well with the audience. But then later they develop this cult following. And I think that's the case with The Cabin in the Woods. It's just a brilliant film. I loved the comedy that was in it. I loved the amount of gore that was in it, the suspense, and the performances were, oh my God, they were incredible. This movie was cast perfectly from top to bottom. So
agreed.
Yeah. Coming up, we have your scare preview, but first, make sure you check out Jaunty Haunts, a podcast all about the supernatural, hosted by our good friend Courtney, the self-proclaimed seer who, after 30 years of keeping it quiet, is finally sharing her secret with the world. She sees ghosts. Every episode, she will dive into eerie encounters, true tales of the seen and unseen, and she welcomes guests to share their own experiences with the paranormal. It's spooky, it's funny, and it is also very, very relatable. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, you will find something to love. You can listen to Jaunty Haunts wherever you get your podcasts. You definitely do not want to miss it. All right, scare preview time. Shay and I both have a movie we want to tell you about. Shay, I will let you go first.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So this is The Third Parent by director and writer David Michaels. It's based off of a creepypasta off the internet.
Oh,
funny enough. It stars Rob Lowe, Rosalind Sanchez, and one of my favorites, Crispin Glover, as the sinister Tommy Taffy. The release date is October 31st, 2025, Halloween. Let's go. I'm so excited.
Love that they're releasing it on Halloween.
Oh, me too. Although it's an interesting one, that's for sure. If you have read the creepypasta, which I am a frequent viewer and watcher and reader of. But this one I am excited about seeing turned into a full Hollywood movie. It follows the Hollow family living in idyllic suburbia celebrating 4th of July, but their lives are upended when a doll-like creature named Tommy Taffy appears to ruin their lives. He imposes a horrifying life lesson system and causes terror to all. I cannot wait to see Crispin Glover as a villain again. It will be so amazing no matter what. Even if the movie sucks, I don't care. I will watch it.
That sounds very intriguing. I think that's amazing. So my pick is a movie that's not coming out until next year. It is called The Bride. And this is a gothic reimagining of The Bride of Frankenstein set in a post-war asylum with very strong feminist overtones and very eerie period visuals. It is directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal, stars Jessie Buckley, and it looks really good. I'm getting a serious Crimson Peak meets Shelley vibe here, and cannot wait to see how they revive this legend. Again, you got to wait a little while. This does not come out until March of next year, 2026, but it is The Bride from Maggie Gyllenhaal. So very excited about that. And that is the Scare preview. So yeah, some good movies coming out. So that is it for this week's episode of Opening Kill. Please leave us a 5-star review. Shout out to us on our socials at openingkillpod. Subscribe and like. You can message us if you have a film suggestion as well. And special thank you to Shay Astor, Opening Kill researcher and special effects makeup artist, for sitting in the last couple of weeks for us. And for Michael, he's taking some time off. So Shay, love you to death. Thank you so much for sitting in.
Oh, shucks. It's been great. I will be back, though, of course.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Opening Kill. Coming up next week, Michael will be back in the hot seat. We are going to be going over the film Alien Romulus. So again, another sci-fi horror film. Looking forward to that. We look forward to you joining us next week on Opening Kill. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you then.
The Opening Kill podcast is hosted by Michael Duran and Brian O'Connor. It's produced by Mystic Cloud Productions. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram too. Join us next Thursday for a brand new episode.